Well, folks, the Oklahoma Sooners are 5-0 going down to the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, Texas next week. The Texas Longhorns, on the other hand, are 3-2, but we are not here to discuss that. The Sooners prevailed this afternoon as expected at Owen Field over Kent State, 44-0. The Sooners finally pitched that elusive shutout. They were close against Illinois State. They were close against Temple. In both cases, a turnover deep in their own territory allowed the opponent to come through with a field goal for their only points of the game. But the Sooners managed to play 60 minutes of nearly flawless defensive football in this one. And the offense, Jesse Crittenden, with Michael Hawkins at the helm, wasn't spectacular by any means. It wasn't a prolific type of day for Oklahoma offensively, but I think Hawkins showed plenty of promise, plenty to make the average Oklahoma fan believe that even if John Mateer can't go next week, you got a dang good shot against Texas.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we've said, even with John Mateer in this offense, the identity of this team is the defense. We saw that again today. And I think from an offensive perspective, Michael Hawkins, 162 passing yards, 14 to 24 passing, 3 touchdowns, had 33 rushing yards on the ground. Wasn't a perfect day for the offense. But I think overall, running efficiency-wise, passing efficiency-wise, there's things that can be better. But I think today they showed enough. They did just enough. And when you combine that with the no turnovers on the day, it's a fine offensive performance.
I think the major criticism of Hawkins in the aftermath of this game will be the mechanics. It will be the sidearm. What did you think of that aspect of his game today?
Yeah, I mean, I think there were definitely times you saw him. It took him some time to get settled into the game. You saw a couple of moments where he gets a little bit of happy feet in the pocket, a couple of sidearm throws where the throw just ends up sailing over him. There's definitely some times, and he talked about it a little bit after the game. There's some receivers that he could have hit that he missed that when you watch the tape, especially if he is the guy against Texas, you got to get corrected. But at the same time, I think the more important thing is the lack of turnovers. That's for one. Two, he made the plays that he needed to make. That's the other one. And three, Parker, I think some of that combination of, I think there were times he held the ball a little too long that you can correct, but also the offensive line struggled quite a bit in pass protection today.
Jaden Knott got going.
It's good.
I mean, it wasn't an explosive performance from Jaden Knott, but 13 touches, 59 yards. He looked like a player, Jesse. And okay, yes, it's Kent State. Maybe you don't draw too much from an isolated instance such as this one, but Jaden Knott, to the naked eye, looked like a guy that wasn't out of his depth, wasn't a total bust, wasn't a completely bad investment in the portal for Oklahoma. He looks like a guy that you might be able to get something out of moving forward.
It was a completely different story than the first 4 weeks where he didn't look good when he was on the field either. Just that the energy wasn't there, the effort wasn't there, the vision wasn't there. Today we saw those things. You're like, yeah, it's Kent State. We could say that a billion times, but we saw the vision. We saw him have some explosiveness. We saw him have, I mean, he caught a couple of passes for 10 yards today. And I think the more notable thing, Parker, was it wasn't just lip service when Ben Arbuckle and Brent Venables talked about him during the course of the week. They got him more involved in the offense during the bye week, and we saw it out on the field today. I mean, Torrey Blaylock got the RB1 duties, but Javante Barnes didn't play. Xavier Robinson didn't play until Sawchuk logged some carries late in garbage time. It was just Torrey Blaylock and Jaden Knott that got some snaps, and they both did some things with him. So I don't think it's about even that it was Kent State. It's the fact that he got involved, did some things, and that gives you some sort of hope that there's a role for him, where through the first 4 weeks that was not the case.
Isaiah Satania had 97 punt return yards.
He's going to break one.
The most for a Sooner in over a decade. That was a really exciting thing to watch over the course of the football game. He had a long return that was called back due to a holding penalty. But, man, that's one of those guys where if you're a fan of the opposition, you're holding your breath every time that dude doesn't throw up the fair catch signal if he's back there returning punts.
Yeah, absolutely. You think about the miscues from the Michigan game. I mean, those feel so long ago. I mean, it's clear that he's got some juice. I think your prediction from the Illinois State game that he's going to house a punt at some point is going to come to fruition. It's going to. And I think, Parker, when you combine his juice with Grayson Miller's punting and the fact that Tate Sindel has now made 8 straight kicks,
nine
straight kicks since missing that first kick in the season opener. Special teams, you got to feel good just as a whole where this group is right now.
And Tate Sandel's final attempt today, a career-long 55-yarder, the 4th longest field goal that has ever been kicked here at Owen Field. Jesse, the Sooners also not only won the turnover battle, but they turned their first turnover of the season into a defensive touchdown. Last fall in Baton Rouge, Grayson Halton strip-sacked Garrett Nussmeier, and R. Mason Thomas scooped and scored. Well, R. Mason Thomas returned the favor today. He strip-sacked Kent State's quarterback. I don't even remember his name off the top of my head. It was Kent State's backup
Yeah, it
quarterback.
wasn't the starter.
He comes up with a strip sack. It's Halton this time that scoops it up, saunters into the end zone for his first career touchdown. Quite the exclamation point on the end of the turnover drought for Oklahoma.
It was essentially the only thing the defense needed to do today, outside of obviously just play well. I think the only thing you were really looking for was them to force a takeaway. They were the only FBS team coming into today that hadn't forced one. And even through we go into halftime without a takeaway, you're wondering, are they going to go through another game where they don't get the takeaway? And they did. They get two in the second half. I asked R. Mason Thomas about that play. He said, thank God for one. And then two, talked about how it was funny, like you mentioned, that it was those two involved in that play, just like they were against LSU. That seemed to be the only thing this defense hadn't done to this point, was force a takeaway. They did that. And also, again, just the run defense, even without Jaden Jackson and Dominic Williams on the interior today, both those guys were held out. 17 rushing yards, I think, for Kent State. It was another dominant performance.
Before we move on from this very rudimentary victory for Oklahoma, Jesse, knee-jerk reaction to the result today in Gainesville and thoughts on how these two teams, i.e. Oklahoma and Texas, match up on paper going into next Saturday.
Yeah, I got to watch some of that game in the press box. And I mean, this Texas offense has just struggled. And I think you have to give credit, obviously, to Florida that they played well, like their season was kind of on the line today. But Parker, when I think about this team, when I think about measuring them to next weekend, again, like I said earlier, this team is going to be led by its defense, regardless of how well John Mattia or whoever is at quarterback, anybody else plays on offense. This team is led by its defense. And this defense has proven that it's going to keep them in games. And I think when you combine that with, you think of some of the ways they can attack that Texas offensive line. When you think about the ways they can make things tough on Arch Manning, to me, it's even if Michael Hawkins Jr. is at quarterback next weekend, I think you limit the turnovers, you let that defense go to work, put pressure on Arch Manning. I think you got to feel pretty good if you're Oklahoma about where things stand going into next weekend.
The biggest mismatch on paper, at least. We'll see what happens when these two teams hit the field. But on paper, I don't know that there is a bigger mismatch than the Oklahoma defensive line versus the Texas offensive line. That's where the Sooners can make their hay next week in the Cotton Bowl. And in closing, never ceases to amaze me. The two men in college football that are the absolute best at somehow not getting fired are Dave Aranda and Billy Napier. They just hang on, folks. And Napier just hung on for one more week, at the very least, at Florida this afternoon. And the Longhorns were the unfortunate victim. 44-0, the final from here at Owen Field. Oklahoma is 5-0, going down to Dallas for the Red River Shootout. We will be there. We'll see where Oklahoma falls in the AP poll tomorrow. They're number 5 as of right now. Probably remains the case, I would say, at this point, when the new polls drop tomorrow. But regardless, it'll be a matchup of two ranked teams. No doubt Oklahoma will likely be favored in Vegas at this point. But there will be a million different angles to this game. There always are. We're going to cover every single one of them for you over at ouinsider.com. So if you haven't subscribed over there, you'll want to. It's just $1 for your first week. You don't like us, you don't have to stick around. But certainly subscribe to this YouTube channel as well if you haven't already. That doesn't cost you a dime. It's a real easy way to keep up with all of the video content that we're churning out on a regular basis for Sooner fans right here on the ouinsider.com YouTube channel. For Jesse Crittenden, I'm Parker Thune. We are turning out the lights from Norman, America. We'll see you next week down in Big D.